Hi, I'm Linda Quinlan.
I'm Ann Charles.
I'm Keith Ghostland, and welcome to All Things LGBTQ. We are taping on Tuesday, June 24th. All Things LGBTQ is taped at Orca Media in Montpelier, Vermont, which we acknowledge as being unceded Indigenous land. And for today's show, I wore my Orlando t-shirt. June 10th was the 9th anniversary of the massacre at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando, Florida. 49 people were killed, 53 were wounded, and I have a collage of their faces so that we don't forget. So, and you have something you would like to say as well.
Okay, I can say it at the top of the show. I was ready to say it when I began international news. Once again, I'd like to express my outrage at the genocide in Gaza. And now this problem with Iran, caused by Trump, is being used as a distraction. And I urge us not to forget the ongoing genocide in Gaza that is worsening every day. Now there's a threat that that Gazans are gonna die of thirst because of the Israeli blockade. This is genocide, and the U.S. is deeply complicit, and it's entirely unacceptable. So I'd like to register my condemnation, as we do.
And I found it interesting that today on the news, they were saying, the Israeli government was saying, how could the Iranians bomb places where people live?
There we go.
Civilians.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Kind of ironic. Anyway, to start off the show, I have a clip. And it's a movie. And it's writer and director Tina Romero debuted their first feature film, Queens of the Dead. A zombie apocalyptic horror comedy set in queer nightlife at the Tribeca Film Festival. Rave reviews and raucous audience. It was the best moment of my entire life, Romero tells Pride. The film stars a queer heavy hitters, including Kathy O'Brien, Jack Haven, Cheyenne Jackson, Margaret Cho, Dominic Jackson, Nina West, and Raquel Spivey, and sees a group of drag queens, go-go dancers, and queer club kids on a horde of the undead with just a crossbar, high heels, and some good old-fashioned queer resistance. It was a labor of love for Romero that was 7 long years in the making, and before taking off at breakneck pace last year as everything came together in a whirlwind. This movie is now making film festivals. So here's a clip of Queens of the Dead.
Today, we're excited to give you a first look at Tina Romero's upcoming film, Queens of the Dead. You're seeing on screen is the first look at Queens of the Dead. With Halloween just around the corner, it's the perfect time to dive into the world of horror, specifically the zombie genre. George A. Romero's Living Dead series has been a beloved franchise since its inception in 1968 with Night of the Living Dead. Now, Romero's daughter, Tina, is carrying on her father's legacy with Queens of the Dead. The film's first image has been released, and it's a real treat for horror fans. The ensemble cast, including Katie O'Brien, Cheyenne Jackson, Jackal Spivey, and Dominique Jackson, are front and center. They're looking at something shocking off-screen, likely related to the undead. The film also boasts an impressive cast, including Bridget Lundy-Payne, Margaret Cho, Nina West, Quincy Dunbaker, Becca Blackwell, and Ricky Lindholm. So, what's Queens of the Dead all about? The film follows an eclectic group of drag queens, club kids, and frenemies who must put aside their personal dramas to combat a zombie apocalypse that breaks out during a drag show in Brooklyn. It's a unique blend of horror and comedy, and we can't wait to see how it all comes together. Tina Romero had high praise for her cast, saying, "This is the cast of my wildest dreams, in a movie about survival. You gotta love and root for the survival crew. Every single person in this ensemble brings such a special and specific flavor both on and off screen. The result is truly a magic sauce. Romero co-wrote the screenplay with Aaron Judge. While Queens of the Dead doesn't have a release date yet, we're hoping for a 2025 debut. The film is produced by Vanishing Angle in association with IFC Films and Shudder, a horror-centric streamer. With the first image released, it's likely we'll hear more about the film soon. If you're a fan of zombie movies or just looking for something new to watch, Queens of the Dead is definitely one to keep on your radar. The combination of horror and comedy, paired with a talented ensemble cast, makes for a compelling watch. We'll be sure to keep you updated on any future developments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more horror movie news and updates. Thank you for watching.
I think you attract these movies.
She loves them, I know.
Yeah.
I just went to see one Sunday. Just shy of 1 year since his arrest, Justin Heath Smith, the adult film performer known professionally as Austin Wolf, pleaded guilty Friday in a Manhattan federal courtroom to a felony charge of enticing a 15-year-old boy to engage in sex with him. So. And J.D. Vance has become the most blocked account on Blue Sky just 2 days after joining the social media platform because of all his anti-trans stuff that he put on Blue Sky. 9 transgender activists and allies were arrested outside the Supreme Court on Friday while protesting the U.S. versus Scrimeti ruling that allows states to ban gender-affirming youth care for youth, organizers of the protest said. And you're doing more on that, correct?
Yes, I have more on that.
A Florida man was arrested after trying to bring a loaded gun to a Wilton Manors parade earlier this week. Michael Monhiet showed up at the Wilton Manors Stonewall Pride Parade and Street Festival around 8 p.m., but was stopped when he passed through metal detectors at the event. When alarms sounded, security called over police who ordered Montiet to stop immediately. The 31-year-old initially ignored the command, according to the release. When police officers detained him, they found he was carrying a loaded firearm and additional ammunition magazines. So, and there's no more information about who he was. I mean, we know who he was, but who he was associated with, what his intentions were.
His intentions seem kind of clear.
Well, yeah, except, you have that gun carry thing, and so. Visitors are placing trans flags at the Stonewall National Monument in New York in an act of defiance after the Trump administration said only the traditional 6-striped rainbow flag could be flown for Pride Month.
That's good. We were there, we'd place a flag.
Here's a good news story.
Good.
D.C. has its first affordable housing space for older LGBTQ plus folks.
Pack a bag.
I know,
No kidding.
I asked Anna if she wanted to move there. She said no.
Wouldn't be my top choice.
Having broken ground on July 23, the building is ready to welcome its first tenants and is currently taking applications. So if you want to be considered, you can make your application online. Sitting in southeast DC's Fort DuPont neighborhood, the complex boasts 15 single-occupancy resident units and 5,000 square feet of shared communal living space. That includes a communal kitchen and dining room. According to Mary's House for Older Adults, the nonprofit organization behind the residents will offer Americans with Disabilities Act adaptable units, health support for tenants, and welfare and wellness programs.
That's good.
So it sounds really good. Although 15 isn't that many.
No,
No.
it's not.
I mean, I would imagine the first 15 applications you got, it would be gone.
Probably a backlog too.
And I have one last story I will read, and then I will move to Ann. Texas is being sued over its Don't Say Gay law that not only bans discussions of sexual orientation and gender identity in classrooms, but goes even further by completely outlawing LGBTQ plus student clubs. The American Civil Liberties Union of Texas and students engaged in advancing Texas announced Monday that they will be filing a lawsuit against Bill 12 that they say was signed into law by Republican Greg Abbott on Friday. The law is scheduled to take effect September 1st and will be implicated in the 2025-26 school year. So, there you go. It's like Ohio has closed all theirs already. So, Ann.
Onward. I have some statistics about the world, which aren't really encouraging, but you can read it as encouragement, which I will choose to do. 45% of the world doesn't think their country is a good place for gay and lesbian people. Just 39% of people from over 120 countries said that their area was a good place for gay and lesbian people. And which seems to contradict my headline. But anyway, most of the world doesn't think their country is a good place, but the divide is getting smaller. Okay, a median of just 39% of people from over 120 countries said their city or area is a good place for gay and lesbian people, according to a new survey. Oh no, I see the math now. Okay, no contradiction there. According to a new survey from Gallup, compared to 45% who said it was not. Still, this is up consistently from when Gallup first started tracking the attitudes in 2007, when 23% said their country was good and 55% said it wasn't. Countries whose population saw them as good for gay and lesbian people at the highest rates were Iceland, the Netherlands, Belgium, descending order, Sweden, Norway, Spain, Finland, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States at 83%. All of these countries have legalized marriage equality. And what I thought was interesting, is that marriage equality seems to be a determinant of whether people
And
feel
that's
safe.
not really, shouldn't be the indicator of how safe one feels in one's country.
No kidding. Countries with the lowest rates, you may not be surprised by this: Ghana, Kazakhstan, Kosovo, Kyrgyzstan, Lebanon, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Malawi, Gambia, and Senegal. Half of the bottom 10 countries have criminalized same-sex sexual relations. Across 80 countries where same-sex relationships are legal, a median of 46% viewed their areas as good places, up from 32% in 2007. In contrast, no change occurred in 24 countries where same-sex relationships remain illegal, where a median of only 11% of their area said their area was a good place for gay and lesbians. In 2024, this occurred, unchanged from 2007. These findings underscore the link between legal recognition and social attitudes, according to the report. While legal protections can influence social norms and help reduce stigma, they also reflect broader societal shifts. So they're saying marriage comes afterwards, so it's not causal.
I don't buy that.
I think it's back and forth, don't you?
Well, I was going to say, if you look at our history, we have marriage equality in all states, but in 25 states, you can still be fired.
Right.
Because there isn't non-discrimination in employment.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree
That's
with
the
you.
problem with these statistics and surveys. At the same time, the lack of change in countries where same-sex relationships remain illegal highlights the persistent inequalities in the treatment of gay and lesbian people globally. So for what it's worth, statistics have never spoken to me, really. Maybe it's my humanities bent. But now I'd like your opinion about this next interesting world story. Grindr is creating gayborhoods in countries where being LGBTQ is illegal. And we've been talking about Grindr. It's a social networking and dating app for LGBTQ people. And it has explained how it set up a safe digital gayborhood worldwide, even in countries where being gay is illegal. Speaking exclusively to Pink News at an LGBTQ plus music festival called Might Hoopla, where Grindr held its own gayborhood section, Tristan Pinheiro, Grindr's Senior Vice President of Brand Marketing and Communications, explained how the platform is hoping to be seen as a global gayborhood in your pocket. That's the name of the program. We want to provide anything that you find in a physical gayborhood digitally, he explained. Of course, if you're lucky enough to live in a city that has its own physical gay neighborhood, then of course that's where you should be going, and that's where you should be supporting. However, in the majority of places, that's not always possible. There's no gayborhood in Montpelier that I know of. Well, however, in the majority of places, that is not possible. As I just said, Grindr exists in 60 countries where it's still illegal to be gay. By existing in regions where it's still socially unacceptable to be LGBTQ+, Grindr hopes it can bring a sense of community through the online world if physical connectedness isn't possible.
Don't governments, like, that's how they catch people? Like, by...
Well, in the back of my head, I'm thinking about how many of these platforms have been breached, data stolen.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times?
Beating you up because they find you on Grindr? I mean,
Funny that you
Exactly.
should mention that.
Yeah.
Oh, Grindr is fully aware that there are safety concerns related to its operating in regions where same-sex activity is either illegal or rejected. There have been reports in recent years, as both of you just clarified, of local police or criminals using the app to target gay men in sting operations or robberies. Yet the platform fully believes that the benefits of existing in such regions outweigh the possible risks. A cybersecurity expert told Pink News how users can stay safe on the app. We'll get asked often, should you even be in those countries where you're putting people at risk? And we'll always consult with local NGOs and human rights organizations. And the answer is always a resounding yes. You need to be here because you're providing queer people with access to each other. Otherwise, members of the community would be completely isolated. It's not easy for them to go out in the street to a festival, at bar, at work, at university, where they may need to be able to find each other. So now they have a gayborhood app. What do you think?
I don't know.
Piano?
You'll have to report back to us on that, how it works. I mean, I can see the isolation and being alone in countries like, that are really repressive. On the other hand, I think the government's going to get access to all those, and they're going to find out who you are, and then, you'll be sent to prison or murdered or whatever. So I don't know.
And also, saying there are security things that a user could implement to diminish that potential. How many people do we know that have Facebook accounts, but they haven't taught themselves what are the security features you should activate, turn off, or how to define groups so that you know who is participating and have a verification of authenticity?
And they include safety tips like don't always meet in a public place, don't meet in anybody's home. And I don't mean to be judgmental, and I don't know, but I wonder if hookups are community. I suppose they are.
We will have that conversation later because it goes back to early advocacy groups forming here in Vermont, and it was the hookup sites where people knew I could go and meet someone else like me, and then a true community group evolved out of that.
Good.
So
Well, that's
it's-
good.
it's-
So
it's-
it's kind of
it's nuanced,
optimistic
yeah.
in that regard. Well, thank you for your input. Now I'd like to go to Africa and talk about Valley of a Thousand Hills on Netflix. That came out in 2022 from South Africa. A young woman who comes from a conservative village must choose between living a lie to stay the perfect Zulu daughter or risk her life for true love. Nsopfo has a secret. She is a loving daughter held up as an example in her community, with a domineering father who has chosen a potential husband for her. But her soulmate and one true love is a woman. So let's look at a clip now from Valley of a Thousand Hills.
Usumdala manje. Sekufanele ucabange ngekusasa lakho. Ucabange nangomyeni.
Amaplani enginawo mina ngempilo yami awamfaki nakancane nje umuntu wesilisa.
Jeez, Isipho. Akwazi ukuvumela ubaba bakhe manje kushadise nje kanje.
Ukusukela namhlanje usuzoyiphathisa kwentokazi eqotho eshadile.
Ungahamba nawe?
Yini?
Siye ekamereni lakho.
Well, it's not as good as Queers.
Oh, and speaking of cinema, on a previous show, Linda highlighted Honey Don't,
Yes.
the Ethan Coen film. We saw it. It was, we don't recommend it. It was like kind of pointless and violent and, you know, I mean, some members
Well,
of
if you've ever seen a Coen movie, you know what
Oh,
they're
well,
like.
I-
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Some members of the audience were laughing. I speculated they might have been a younger contingent. So
Yeah.
maybe we didn't get the point, but we
And
personally,
we need to move on.
done.
So the quick trivia question. In cinema, when was the first time the term gay was used to mean someone who was homosexual?
I now know
And-
because you told me.
And we worked through it. So looking at events, Rainbow Umbrella, Women's Discussion
Yep,
Group,
yep.
and you were discussing?
Ann Applebaum.
Okay.
Sarah Schulman has a new book, and we, you know, the launch has been taped, so I'm torn between recommending either of those, but we're thinking of Ann Applebaum, who is so wonderful and encyclopedic, and I'm going to quote her in one of my stories coming up if I have time.
Which leads right into the book discussion group.
Yes.
Right, Still Pomegranate,
Yeah.
July 6th, 11 o'clock.
Okay. July 3rd, there might be someone in
There
the
might
parade.
be.
Okay. Be on the lookout. And book discussion groups, Plainfield Cutler Memorial Library,
Yeah.
June 6th, first Sunday of each month. Come talk about whatever book you would like to discuss. No registration required.
Right.
No pre-reading. Foxy Market, On Saturday, June 28th, Livia's Buffy Trans
Yes.
Trivia Group. Somebody's hot to go. We may go someplace else. Yeah, we may go. A reminder, Vermont Queer Festival, Saturday, August 2nd at Millstone Hill in Waterville. And they've already given us the date for the winter one, so we will keep that in the back. Rainbow Bridge Community Center will put up their list of activities. Look, is there a group that is of interest to you? They keep offering, what is it that you need? How can we be supportive? So, Lamoille, the last Pride Day in June, June 29th, noon to 4 at the Morristown Elementary School. Vendors, activities, crafts, come have a good time. And on the book theme, we're a literate group. Queer Reads is now at the Pride Center. It's the last Sunday of each month from 1:30 to 2:30, and on June 29th, they will be discussing Chef's Choice by T.J. Alexander. And on July 27th, Disability Intimacy, edited by Alice Wong. And then on August 31st, The Space Between Worlds by Michaela Johnson. And a reminder that Rutland County Pride Center on Fridays from 8 until noon has a queer working space. Wi-Fi, set up. If you want to collaborate with people, this is an opportunity, but it is a space specifically created for us to do sort of remote access work. So with that,
All right.
I hand it back to you.
Well, where should I start? Sabrina Cervantes, an out Democrat representing Riverside, was involved in an accident near State Capitol building in Sacramento last month, in which she said her sedan was T-boned by a large SUV. What is a T-bone anyway?
It goes into the side of your car.
Oh, okay.
Perpendicularly.
Yeah.
Okay. The SUV driver, who was found to have run through a stop sign, was deemed at fault and cited for the accident. Cervantes was then taken to a nearby emergency room so she could be checked for injuries. There she was, accosted by Sacramento Police Department officers, falsely accusing her of driving under the influence and involuntarily detained for several hours at the hospital. She was also allegedly not allowed to contact her attorney or wife during this time. I hope she's doing something about
I hope
that.
she sues you.
We'll try to follow up with that.
Is the suggestion that it was homophobia or
That
anti?
was the suggestion that, they were out together. She was gay. She was part of the government and, so. Sandra Vales is proof that you shouldn't give up on your dreams. After a long career in stand-up comedy, as well as appearances in films, theater, and TV, the lesbian actor, comedian, writer, and singer is realizing a cherished dream by making her Broadway debut at 59 in Real Women Have Curves. The musical, which is an open-ended run at the James Earl Jones Theater, is based on the play by Josefina Lopez, which was adapted into popular HBO filming in America. Set in 1987, it centers on Ana Garcia, who works in her family Los Angeles garment factory and hopes to go to New York City to study journalism at Columbia University, which has granted her a scholarship. Her family members want her to stay. Vals plays one of Anna's factory co-workers, a queer woman named Prima Volvia. So, you may want to see that if you get to Broadway.
And I did see a note that it's closing soon.
You what?
I did see a note that it's closing soon.
Oh,
I really wanted to see it too.
I think I read the book. Or I saw the movie. There was a movie. Melissa Hortman, a former Minneapolis House Speaker.
Is it Hortman or Holtzman?
Hortman.
Okay.
A former Minnesota House Speaker who championed the passage of ambitious positive policies in the state, was assassinated early Saturday in what Governor Tim Walz called an act of targeted political violence. She was an LGBTQ champion. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth found himself on the defensive Thursday as California Democrats U.S. Representative Sarah Jacobs used a House Armed Services Committee hearing to expose what she demonstrated is the hypocrisy of the Trump administration's purge of transgender service members, many of whom are among the highest rated troops in the U.S. military. And I do have a clip here that I wanted to show, I think, or did I show both my clips? Anyway, let me move to U.S. Representative Angie Craig steps into the national spotlight with the U.S. Senate bid. She brings with her a battle-tested strategy forged in one of the most politically divided districts in America, and a record of standing firm for LGBTQ rights while building unlikely coalitions. Now in her fourth term, representing Minnesota's 2nd congressional district, Craig is aiming higher at a moment when both democracy and queer equality feel precariously under siege. Following the November election that returned President Trump to the White House over Vice President Harris, Craig is clear-eyed about what's at stake. We are in a fight for our lives, and here is a picture of her.
Is she running against Josh Hawley? Is she running for Senate?
Mm-hmm. And then there's a Sally Ride documentary, if no one has seen it. I haven't yet.
Gotten a lot of buzz.
The first American to fly into space, but she had a secret. She was a lesbian. And here's a clip of that documentary.
Dr. Wright, a couple of fast, quick questions here, sir. Ma'am, during your training, when there was a problem, how did you respond? Do you weep?
Why doesn't anybody ask Rick those questions? When I was a little girl, I always dreamed of flying in space.
As rookies in the astronaut corps, none of us knew what was about to happen to us.
I was concerned I might not be able to keep up. Sally's back there going, whee!
She loved that it was very challenging to learn. Therefore, if you learned it, you were hot stuff.
Women astronauts? Are you kidding me? They hadn't paid their dues like we had.
Sally, is there anybody here at NASA who is still unconvinced that women have a place in the space program?
I think there are a few people that are waiting to see how I do. Let me put it that way.
Main engine start. And liftoff. We have America's first woman astronaut.
Houston, you're loud and clear now.
She was the most famous person on Earth for a while. It was really hard because she was very private.
Dr. Sally Ride.
Sally Ride.
Sally K. Ride.
Sally risked everything to make history. But telling the world about us was a risk she just couldn't take.
Could you tell me who you were to Sally?
I was her life partner for 27 years. Sally would send these notes to me. I decided to tackle the problem of red plus green equals yellow. She actually did the math. Isn't physics wonderful? You sure are. Love the mad physicist.
It's time people realize women in this country can do any job that they want to do.
She proved it. Done.
If more little girls grew up with an interest in science like we did, the world would be a better place.
Space changed for all time when Sally went up.
I really dreamed of getting a chance to go into space. And unbelievably, that dream came true.
And this is a story last story that Ann wanted me to
oh, good.
talk about San Antonio, Texas. U.S. Air Force veteran and former federal official Gina Ortiz Jones made history on Friday, June 7th, after winning the runoff election to become the next mayor of San Antonio, making a groundbreaking moment for both Filipino Americans and the LGBT community. In Texas, Ortiz Jones, 43, secured 54.3% of the vote, defeating Republican candidate Rolando Pablo, who garnered 45.7 according to official election results. She will be sworn into office on June 18th, succeeding long-term Mayor Ron Nirenberg. So there you go.
Great, that's great news from Texas.
And upbeat for the last story of
Yeah.
the day. Okay, Ann.
All right, I have much material.
Well, you
And-
have about 8 minutes or so.
All right, so let's start with Australia. It updates its blood and plasma donation rules to be more LGBTQ plus inclusive. The National Blood Donation Service has announced a landmark policy change that will remove outdated and discriminatory practices against gay men that were put in place during the height of the HIV epidemic. Lifeblood, a branch of the Australian Red Cross, recently announced that it will remove most sexual activity wait times for plasma donations. Under this world-leading plasma pathway, most people, including gay and bisexual men and anyone who takes PrEP, will be able to donate plasma without a wait period, providing they meet all the other eligibility criteria. It is estimated the change will bring 24,000 more donors and result in 95,000 more donations per year. So that's good news. Now another good story, I think, involves the media. South Korea launches its first ever lesbian dating show, and I have a picture now of two presumed participants, or maybe it's the advertising. Anyway, it's a great picture. It's called To Get Her, a dating show from South Korea that has recently premiered. It's the first for the country. In a first for the country, this matchmaking show focuses on helping girls find a girl. The premise of To Get Her is that 7 contestants move into a house together in Jeju Island, and as the women get to know each other and participate in romantic activities to see if any connections form.
Oh, God, that could be like...
Oh, my goodness.
7 lesbians in one house. Oh, God.
This production company, the production company Fizplay, is also credited for creating South Korea's first gay dating show, His Man, in 2022. These shows mark what could be a huge turning point in the country as LGBTQ people face challenges from their country's government. Gay marriage in South Korea is still not recognized legally, though there have been social improvements in the country since the 2010s. Progress is still slow, as many people in power are adamant about clinging to old traditions, even when it makes little sense in today's modern world. The show has had controversies, and this maybe anticipates some of Linda, or clarifies some of Linda's remarks. The show has had controversies, with one of the contestants, Ri Wan, coming under fire for not disclosing that she has dated men in the past, and people began accusing her of not being a real lesbian because of it. As of now, the show has concluded filming its first season, and the full series is available on a Korean streaming platform.
Wow.
So that should be fun.
Yeah.
Now, another happy, although belated, bit of good news for Oscar Wilde. The British Museum has reinstated his reading pass in a symbolic gesture of repentance. The gay poet and playwright's whole life, oh, and let's look at a picture of him. The gay poet and playwright's whole life came crashing down when he was found guilty of gross indecency with a man in 1895. The British Library has announced it will posthumously reinstate his reader pass after revoking it in 1895 due to his homosexuality. Known at the time as the British Museum Reading Room, where Karl Marx wrote Das Kapital, I may add, the venue banned Wilde after he was found guilty of gross indecency with men and sentenced to 2 years of hard labor. The symbolic pass will be presented to Wilde's grandson, Merlin Holland, at an event on October 16th, Wilde's birthday. Ask how Wilde, and I agree with him about this, ask how Wilde might react to the gesture. Holland told The Guardian he'd probably say, about time, too. Holland, who is a Wilde scholar, said that his grandfather had already been in prison for 3 weeks when the British Museum Reading Room revoked his access, so he wouldn't have known about it, which was probably as well. It would have just added to his misery to feel that one of the world's great libraries had banned him from books, just as the law had banned him from daily life. But the restitution of his ticket is a lovely gesture of forgiveness, and I'm sure his spirit would be touched. And this is a little contradictory, so forgive him for what? But the grandson gets to the point. He said, however, he doesn't think his grandfather's conviction should be pardoned as part of the 27 UK law allowing posthumous pardons for anyone convicted under former laws that criminalized homosexuality. The law led to pardons for an estimated 50,000 to 100,000 gay and bisexual men, but the names of those men were not released. Oscar didn't think there was anything wrong in same-sex love. I'm not absolutely certain he has been pardoned. If I had to ask for a pardon, I wouldn't, because all it would do is make the British establishment feel better about itself. History, and you can't. History is history, and you can't start rewriting it. Lori Walker, lead curator of modern archives and manuscripts, said the reinstatement of the pass is even more important since the British Library owns the massive collection of his manuscripts. We really want to honor Wilde now and acknowledge what happened to him, she told The Guardian. Section 11 was the law which related to the criminalization of homosexuality, and it was unjust.
You have headlines? Because we have to move on. Keith has his stories about the Supreme Court we have to do.
Okay, well, let me just do this one story. I keep postponing these 2 stories, and they're becoming outdated, but... All right, so here's a complicated situation. Let me show you a picture now of Sarah Ashton Cirillo, 47. She's a transgender American who joined the Ukrainian army and said Kyiv should hunt down Russian journalists. And for that, she is given a 20-year jail term. She's in absentia, though, because she's still in Ukraine. She's an American trans woman and volunteered for the Ukrainians' Territorial Defense Forces as a combat medic right after Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. So she traveled to Ukraine to cover the invasion as a war correspondent for LGBTQ plus Nation, quit that, and started working. She volunteered to join the Ukrainian army fighting as part of Kharkiv's Territorial Defense Brigade after she went over for LGBTQ Nation. In 2023, she withdrew from the front line because she was injured and was appointed as the English language spokesperson for the Territorial Defense Brigade. In this role, she launched a YouTube show entitled Russia Hates the Truth, in which she reviewed and debunked Moscow's disinformation campaigns, catching the eye of Russian media. Okay, so they made her register as a terrorist, and she was sentenced to 20 years, but she courted controversy in August 2023 after her work with the Ukrainian Terrorist Defense Brigade was brought to the attention of J.D. Vance, who appeared in Linda's story, who at the time was a Republican senator. So he wrote to the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken and to Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin and all those people in the Biden administration, accusing the junior sergeant, which she was at that point, of threatening physical violence to anyone who circulates Russian propaganda during a video message she made. But he also wanted to know Vance wanted to know if she was being compensated by the U.S. government. But she went on to release, and here's where she got in trouble, a follow-up video amid Vance's speculation in which she told viewers that Russian devils would pay for their crimes with the Ukrainian TDF branding in the background. The release of the clip coincided with Zelensky's visit to Washington and was not approved by Ukrainian TDF, so she was suspended. Speaking in 2023, she admitted she should have gotten their permission before posting the response to Vance. Russia hates the truth, doesn't require anything to be vetted. This is a nice website. I and the TDF team have editorial control over that. It's meant to be as over the top as possible. It was my response to Senator Vance in uniform in front of the TDF logo without approval, which was the reason for my suspension.
Okay.
She was later cleared of wrongdoing by them, but Russian has sentenced her to 20 years in absentia.
Oh, poor girl.
Convoluted and sort of interesting still.
Was she of Ukrainian descent?
No, she's American.
Well, she could be of Ukrainian descent.
Oh, I don't know.
Okay.
So we're going to start with a clip, and this is a documentary that was created here in Vermont, and thank you, Rachel, for passing this on to us. Claim the Lane, Becoming Roxy. And this is their statement to go along with this. From the freedom of coming out to the conflicts that remain after transition, Claim the Lane embodies the full scope of Roxy's experience. Our goal is to humanize the struggle for truth in ourselves and our relationships, choices and conflicts shared by everyone, regardless of identity. And this is an intimate character portrait at a time of polarizing transgender narratives. And this is Roxy's decade-long leadership and commitment to the gravel community that had made her an icon in central Vermont, where she plans routes, pulls in new cyclists, and puts everything on the line for her training goals. A quiet joy eases over her face. But off the bike, Roxy is coping with the impacts of military service and planning gender-affirming surgeries that she was convinced she could never pursue after being raised in a transphobic family and culture. Filmed over a year and a half, Claim the Lane is a story of transformation, loss, and healing. We're with Roxy as she trains and races through an unpredictable cycling season leading up to the Vermont Overland. And anybody who knows cycling, a grueling 55-mile, 700 feet vertical event where hundreds of entrants quit or do not finish. As the demands build, Roxy makes the decision to live the second half of her life as a woman and undergo gender-confirming surgery. So here is the clip.
It's a state of flow, a little bit of desperation, a little bit of danger, and a little bit of action. Bike race has all of those things.
She's one of the more visible trans athletes in Vermont.
Here we go, Vermont. Perfect.
It's impressive, especially when you come out later. You know, you're rocking everybody's perception of you.
This film is an intimate portrait of Roxy Bombardier, a Vermont gravel cyclist who risks everything to come out of the closet and be her true self. We're excited to give you a first look at what we've shot and launch this project through the editing process.
I have known that I'm a woman since I was age 11 or so. I also knew that I would be ostracized, punished, and I didn't know if I would be able to live with my family anymore. Finally, I came out in October of 2018. I knew that I could have Sarah or I could have my transition. I wasn't going to get both.
This story is an intimate look at Roxy's journey From her painful past to the joy of transition, from the heartbreak of lost relationships to finding purpose and connection through cycling. At a time when transgender headlines are full of politicized debate, Roxy chooses a path that makes her a visible symbol of empowerment and representation.
The actual race, it's almost like a cover-up for what she truly gets from biking. Her friendships within the community have helped her gain a sense of self and a sense of purpose.
For the past year and a half, we've followed Roxy at her cycling events, her transition surgery, and critical turning points in her personal journey.
I have been afraid my whole life, but I've done something. I've done some brave things. And if I do nothing else, I've done this for myself.
Now we're inviting you to help us complete the editing and get this film closer to the finish line. Our goal is to share Roxy's story with as many people as possible, and we can't do it without you. Take a look below and support this project by donating, following, and sharing on social media. Thanks for joining us on the ride.
All right.
Thank you, Rachel Desselitz, ally of the show.
And there will be a community showing of this film that actually will be happening before our show airs, so we were not able to connect the two. But keep in track, because the trailer we saw, they were still trying to raise all the funding for the film. They got the full funding, and they're looking at doing more community screening. So hopefully we will have more to announce and share. So quickly, looking at the Scormetti decision. This Scormetti is the Tennessee Attorney General. And this case was about Tennessee's law banning gender affirmation for minors. And it was appealed up through the court system, and the lower appeal court held the ban, saying that they didn't really believe that it was constitutional. U.S. Supreme Court took it up, and in a 6-3 decision, oh, we can act surprise if you'd like, they said, no, you know, we are going to acknowledge the state's right to step in this case, and it does not fly in conflict with Article 2 that, you know, you cannot create a law that is biased on its face. It's like, no, you were saying that, you know, you were looking at medical condition and, you know, this is a minor, this is something that's legitimate. And in the dissenting opinion, they said, no, absolutely, this is specifically the kind of case in which, you know, that clause should be implemented. It should be a higher standard. And the real fear at this point in time is looking at how they progress to the Dobbs decision overturning Roe v. Wade. We're talking about minors here. Minors is one of those issues that gets an emotional versus necessarily an intellectual response. Oh, we need to protect our children, and all of that misinformation about, oh, you're trying to mutilate their bodies. How soon before they start putting the same type of prohibitions in place for adults? We're doing it for minors now, but. And on our next show, I will be talking about, we have a out queer Vermont lawmaker who is resigning her seat in the House and moving to Canada because she can no longer afford to work and afford to live here in Vermont, and she works in healthcare. And what was disclosed is, even though she may live in Addison County, which we view as being a progressive part of Vermont, she's been receiving death threats.
Wow.
So looking at our trivia question, and I was amused by it, and, you know, after, you know, the predictable trivia from the last time. I wanted to find something out of the ordinary in cinema because I knew this is a place where I might have more solid ground. First time gay was used to mean homosexual. And as soon as I mentioned the film, Linda immediately knew it. 1938, Bringing Up Baby, Cary Grant in Katharine Hepburn's feathery, frilly bathrobe, and the aunt saying, "Why is he dressed like that?" To which he said, "I just went gay." And what's in the...
I still love that movie.
And what's in the trivia part is Cary Grant ad-libbed that line. And with that, more than ever.
Absolutely. Get out there. Do your best. Work with your community. And remember to always
resist.